Bula bula, everyone, and welcome to Survivor NSFW and our special coverage of World's Toughest Race. We've got with us some really special guests. We have Travis Macy and his father, Mark Macy, from Team Indoor. Oh, man, I am excited to have them here and go into their heart-wrenching experience that I think was the highlight of World's Toughest Race. How are you guys doing now that we're about a year after Eco Challenge Fiji was filmed?
Yeah, hey Bullock, good to see you guys too. We're glad to be here. Go ahead, Dad. I cut you off.
Yeah, I'm good. Everything's good for me. Got a couple new grandkids, and yeah, it's about as perfect it could be.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So watching the show, I didn't like when I did my first season of Survivor, after a challenge, I was there with probably my main alliance member, this guy Burton Roberts, and Mark Burnett had come up to the two of us after challenge, and Mark Burnett was just like, I guess, you think that challenge was tough? You know, how does that compare with Eco Challenge? And Burton just shoots him this look. He's like, shut up. Like, no one knew I did Eco Challenge. like this is, and, you know, and I'm looking at Burton, you know, I'm in his alliance. And so, and I'm just like, Burton, like, you're a like the fact that you hadn't been on Eco Challenge would have been a surprise. So like I'm not telling anyone, no one's messing up anything, but I did, like, you know, take a step back, and I was just like, you know, I watched some episodes of Eco Challenge on, I believe it was on USA Network at that time, you know, prior to Survivor. And I remember that being pretty hardcore. Fast forward to 2020, you know, I'm excited. I have some friends, Rhino and Michaela from Survivor. They were on Team Traverse.
Peak Traverse, yeah.
Yeah. And so I had, Rhino had called me, you know, several months before going out there, and he was like, hey, I got something I can't tell you. And I was like, okay. And he goes, all right, can you keep a secret? And I'm just like, all right, well, this guy is the worst secret keeper ever. And he goes, I'm going to do Eco Challenge. And he goes, and it's going to be on Amazon Prime, and it's going to be a big deal. And I was like, all right, awesome. I'm just like, I will be watching. You know, fast forward to now, I watched the show when it dropped. I actually finished last night, episode 8. So I'm completely caught up, and I'm sitting there watching it, and I was just like, World's Toughest Race does not do this show. I mean, like, what else can you call it? And it still doesn't do it justice. Like, it is beyond the World's Toughest Race. like I'm sitting there watching, and like, you know, you guys are rowing and then hiking, and so you finally get to bikes, and I was like, all right, well, this is a day off. No, it's straight uphill. It's mud. Like, your bike is nothing more than a weight on your back. I'm just like, so what? Like they're just like, having bikes out there is just mean. it's not even a possibility. So tell us, you know, like, I guess we should go back in time. When did you decide that this version of Eco Challenge was gonna happen for the two of you?
Well,
This year's race, you mean?
Yes.
Or year's race, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Trav?
well, you know, so I guess a little backstory for us and the Macy family is, you know, you talk, Jonny, about some of those early Eco Challenges, and Dad was there. He was doing those. He did all of those original Eco Challenges, you know, late 90s, early 2000s. And at that time, I was a teenager, you know, watching from the sidelines, kind of like you, just watching it on TV and wanting to be out there, and then hearing Dad and his buddies like Marshall Ulrich and Bob Haw, you know, Mike Closer, those guys who you see on this race. You know, those are the guys I was looking to and kind of learning from, and just sort of thinking like, man, I want to do that stuff one of these days. So, you know, move forward a bit. I finished college in 2005. I had been running and doing triathlon at CU Boulder at a fairly high level, but I kind of always had this view that, like, I want to get out there and I want to do these long adventure races. And specifically, I want to do Eco Challenge because that's the original one. That's the big time. But as of 05, as you guys know, and maybe some of the Survivor fans know, Eco Challenge had phased out. The last Eco Challenge was in 2002 in Fiji. And from that point, Burnett and his team moved on mostly to Survivor and some of these other productions. So Eco Challenge was not there, and kind of in the mainstream American consciousness, adventure racing no longer existed. But to those of us kind of in the loop, the very small adventure racing loop, adventure racing was still going, and I was able to get on a professional team and have a budget to travel around the world and race at a high level and, go all over the place, whether it's Australia or New Zealand or China or, Brazil, Patagonia, Sweden, Norway, the Alps, all these cool places doing these races. But again, people didn't know about it. None of them were on TV in America or anything like that. And I kind of always thought in these years, Dad continued to race as well. He was ultra running, he was adventure racing. We were going to races together regionally and domestically and internationally at times. But we always kind of thought, will Eco Challenge come back? And a few years ago, we started hearing these rumors, Eco Challenge is coming back and Bear Grylls is involved. And, it kind of, in this little, adventure racing community on the internet, it's like, oh, this isn't real. This is some this is some scam or something. But come, I guess it would have been, fall 2018, early 2019. It was like, wow, this is the real thing. This is a real Eco Challenge website. It is coming back. And, the next, over the next year or so there leading up to the race, that was, kind of figuring out what is our plan, what is our plan with Team Endure, with the Stray Dogs, as some people saw on the production, the Stray Dogs, that was Dad's original team of men and women his age. They had done these previous races together. They're good friends of ours. They wanted to get out and do it again. I kind of had a different team plan with, maybe we could go for the podium or, I don't know if anyone's going to give the Kiwis a run anytime soon, but who knows, maybe we'll give that a shot. And we kind of realized over the time as the race came closer and Alzheimer's, became part of our family story and journey that, hey, it's probably, it's going to be a better fit for Dad to race with me and some younger, more experienced athletes. And furthermore, as I said, in the production, Dad and I just wanted to race together. We kind of realized like, man, this is a big deal for us to get a shot at, a race like this together, a shot that we may not have in the future. And so we, there was a lot of anxiety and uncertainty of what's going to happen out there and how are things going to go. Definitely it wasn't easy by any means, but gosh, I tell you, we're sure glad we got out there. We had a blast. I mean, Dad and I had fun and our teammates, Shane, Danelle, and Andrew, they were phenomenal as well. It was one of the best teams that I've ever been on, just as far as everyone being aligned, behind a common goal and a shared spirit and everyone chipping in their own ways. I had an awesome time.
Mark, was your original plan to race with Stray Dogs?
Pardon me?
Was your original plan to race with the Stray Dogs once you heard Eco Challenge was coming back?
Yeah, that was the plan.
Yeah.
I was set to go with Marshall and Bob and Adrian Crane, and we're all set to go. And then Travis came up with this idea of he and I racing together. And like you said, I never thought that was going to happen, and seemed like a good idea. And it was a great idea. And I will always, be happy for the fact that I got to race with Travis and in this kind of an event, and it's just perfect.
We're happy too as the viewer. I mean, as fun as it would have been to watch you with the Stray Dogs, you gave us incredible television. I mean, Zack and I were talking, I think I was, 3 episodes in. Zack was towards the end. He was like, I've cried 35 times. I'm like, I'm only up to 15.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, let me ask you, you are a veteran. A lot of people out there are clapping as you come by. You're a pioneer of this sport. For anyone watching the video feed, I'll put up some pictures that you posted on Instagram of some of your races in the past.
Okay.
So cool. What is it about adventure racing that drew your attention? What about this sport called to you?
Well, the best part of it is you get to travel all over the world. I've been everywhere. I've been to countries I don't even know the names of.
I still don't.
Yeah. And now I got Alzheimer's. I don't know where I am most of the time, including as we sit here. But no, I'm just kidding. I do know where I am here. But that's the real reason is, we had just the greatest time traveling all over the world. And by the way, I got to tell you something. This might be interesting to you. I was in Borneo when the first Survivor was on, and I was on the TV show. We came out of the jungle in Borneo just as they're filming that first Survivor. And what's his name? Rupert, I think, was on it. And then the guy with, I can't think of the other guy.
Richard Hatch.
Richard, yeah. And
yeah, I remember Richard.
Yeah.
So we came out of the jungle, and there's TV cameras there, and it was just unbelievable. And I asked Mark Burnett, he was there, and I asked him what's going on. He says, we got this TV show and we can't tell anything about it and everything, and God, it was really cool.
That's amazing behind the scenes. Very cool. Awesome. So you guys have these plans. You're going to race together in Eco Challenge Fiji. I can imagine there were a lot of fears going into this. What this was going to look like was a question mark. Travis, what were some of those concerns that you had going into this race?
Yeah, I mean, there's no precedent for, bringing Alzheimer's along to the Eco Challenge. And you're right. There's a lot of fear and anxiety. I mean, many viewers out there, I think, can relate to receiving a challenging diagnosis, whether it's yourself or someone in your family or a close friend. Those things hit you really hard, and by necessity, they come with a lot of uncertainty about what's going to happen. And especially something like Alzheimer's, you don't know the timeline. You don't know how things are gonna pan out, and we still don't. I think we've come to kind of embrace that and embrace navigating the uncertainty. And when we thought about, sort of overlaying world's toughest race on top of that, that pre-existing uncertainty in many areas of life, there were some anxious moments, and there were, we were very lucky to, just take it with a team approach with, my mom's a huge piece of that, and siblings, family, friends. I mean, Marshall and Bob, again, from the show. I mean, they were a huge part of the team. We were all out preparing together and doing the rope certification and whitewater and things like that, and really just working through how are these things going to work. We had a lot of calls with Dad's medical team, and talking about, hey, what are the risks here? Because there was, there definitely was increased risk. Whether it be something acute like, let's say, getting an infection, leptospirosis. We know these things are out there. As you saw on the show, many athletes came down with, some nasty shit, and people hospitalized after the race. And you saw Harold Zundel. I mean, here's a tough Marine with this cut in his leg, and that kind of stuff. We know that if you have Alzheimer's and you get sick or you get some kind of infection, that can have a significant cognitive impact as well. So we knew there was risk. We knew there was uncertainty. We didn't know what's going to happen in a new environment or with sleep deprivation, all of these sorts of things. But we made the decision together, and I think it was the right decision that, hey, we got the risk on one hand of going out there and something bad happening, or the risk on the other hand of just sort of throwing in the towel and like not living fully. And for us, continuing to live fully, eco challenge at that time, that was a big piece of it. And we thought that was an even bigger risk to you know, throw in the towel. So I think we went for it. You know, anyone, you know, medical staff or whoever you are, you know, you could definitely analyze and say, oh, that maybe it wasn't a good choice. But I think it was for us. And I know, at least for me in life, and this is definitely something I've learned from my parents and other people, you know, in the adventure racing community, that I think taking a risk often pays off. You know, often the risk, as Rebecca Rush, she's another adventure racer, mountain biker, she says, risk is reward. And I think oftentimes that ends up being true.
How important was it for you to have this documented? I mean, you know, the fact you guys racing together, you know, for you know, doing eco challenge together, you know, the early stages of Alzheimer's, but like just to have the production crew of a Mark Burnett television show capturing all these amazing moments. I mean, you know, we've seen through the years on Survivor and all the other shows, you know, Mark Burnett does have that ability to capture that raw emotion and those unbelievable stories.
Yeah.
Were you sitting there like, you know, this is going to be cool, and then the show comes out, you're like, holy moly, did it? Like, this is the greatest gift that we could give our family going forward.
Yeah. You know, for me, and I think probably Dad would agree, I mean, we would have done this race, you know, no matter what. I don't care if anyone sees it or not. And we've done, you know, dozens of these big races around the world, again, that no one knows about, and it's never going to show up anywhere, because it's what we do. We like it. And, you know, that is the core of the motivation for sure. That said, you know, now kind of looking back and seeing this production, I know for me, a huge motivator is like, here is something that we now have that, you know, my kids and Dad's grandkids and my nieces and nephews, like, they can see this, you know, like Dad said. I mean, I got two new nephews who are now 7 weeks old, and those kids, you know, they may not get to see this kind of stuff in person, but hey, man, here's seeing your grandpa doing something that's badass and pretty cool, and that's a huge value for me.
I'll tell you what, you asked about what were our concerns, and you know, I wasn't really concerned about the race itself. I actually thought, I'm going to just do it like I always do, and you know, I'm not really that concerned. And you know, and what I was most concerned about is whether or not they would let me into the race. You know, I thought that, you know, I knew that, you know, all of the people at the Eco Challenge were concerned about me. I know all those people, and I knew they would be concerned. And I thought that somebody might say, look, we can't have Mark Macy out there. We don't know what's going to happen. He's got Alzheimer's, and that was my concern. And I'm happy that they just let me go on, you know, and I think I got lucky because they know that I've done all this stuff, and I'm probably less risk than your average person would have walking in with with this disease, you know. So, you know, I was really grateful when they let me in, and I'm sure glad they did.
Yeah. I mean, they felt like part of the team. It's a production and a TV show and all that, but it's also, you know, it's a community, and these are people who care about each other, and we felt that. And again, this is my first Eco Challenge. It was a blast to be part of that scene, you know, the pomp and circumstance, the opening ceremonies, all that. It was cool. They do a great job with it.
Yeah, we were talking on an earlier episode, like, you know, I personally can imagine some of the younger, inexperienced American teams, you know, like before the race starts, like looking over at the other teams, you know, going, oh man, you're our enemy. We're going to beat you, you know, but, you know, fast forward, you know, an hour and a half in, it's just like, we're all in this together.
Yeah. Well, welcome to adventure racing. I mean, it's this microcosm of life, because you have these crazy highs and lows. You have the the dynamics of your team and people, saying things they don't mean because they're so sleep deprived. And then you have, like you said, Jonny, I mean, you got to help each other out there. Even the top teams, when you're racing for the win, it is not uncommon. You're sharing a little food. You're helping out with each other with the navigation here or there. These sports, one thing I love about them is they're so hard that they're humbling by necessity. They show you, man, that there are times when you need help from your teammates and from other teams, and ain't that life in general? And it's okay.
Yeah, and I don't think it's team versus team. I think it's team versus the course. And I think, as I said, I think a lot of the newer teams probably figure that out really quick. It's just like, oh man, we could probably beat them. We could, it's just like, we got to beat Eco Challenge.
Yeah. I think so. If you're racing for the win, you're racing for the win. And you're right. There's a lot of teams in any race that think they're going to be racing for the win, and they're probably not. Or who knows? Maybe they surprise themselves and they can. But it's very hard, and it's mostly against the course for sure. And even as Nathan 5A said, even if you're racing for the win, I mean, these long races, you're taking most of that time to take care of yourself, take care of your team, make sure little problems don't become big, and then hopefully you're in good enough shape for the final 20% to put in a surge and pull away. That's where the race is won or lost.
Yeah, and along with that, I think that one of the merits of the race and one of the merits of the show is that so many teams have vastly different motivations for being out there. You've got the elite team, and I love following their story as they're competing with each other in the course, but then you've got the teams at the back of the pack who are competing with themselves. How far can they push themselves? And then teams like yourself who are dealing with these like deep emotional challenges as you're working through this course. It really hits on all cylinders. I really love that. What would you guys say is one of like the biggest obstacles you had to face in the race, whether it was spiritual, mental, physical? What sort of things got in your way?
Mud.
Love it.
I remember mud from the race 20 years ago. And I thought, I'm never going to that Fiji mud again. And then we're going there, and I thought, oh man, it's the Fiji mud again. But it's well worth it to go there and see the people and see the jungle again. And it's a great place to go. And, even if you want to just go there on vacation, you ought to go see it because it's an awesome place.
Yeah. How often were you actually cycling versus carrying the bike through some mud or pushing it uphill?
This isn't just some mud. This is mud that's trying to ruin your life. For many hours, it does ruin your life. There was a time when we got mud on the course. It's uphill mud, and there's downhill mud, and I'll bet I fell on my face at least 25 times into the mud without anything else. Just mud in my face all those times. Luckily, Trav's a big, strong guy. He could put my bike on the back of his back.
What was it? 2 weeks ago, Zach, we had Shannon Gash, and what's that?
Sam Gash,
sorry. And she had wished that she had taken apart, disassembled her bike going up and somehow, put it in her, fixed it to her back somehow. She's like, she said she spent more time just getting mud out of the wheels and spokes and stuff than she did, for anything else. She was like, but she goes, but that undying hope of it can't be that much uphill in just this. So you would be silly to take apart your bike. And then, 5K later, it's got to be over soon. That it would be so silly to, and then 5K later, and she's just like, why didn't we take apart our bikes?
Yeah. I think, whether it's Sam or Dad, I know Dad has a tendency to add some exaggeration and hyperbole to his stories, and I've been hearing those over the years. But this one, he is not exaggerating. I mean, it really was. We're just falling all over the place, and I think as far as a big challenge for us was, again, just navigating the strategy with Alzheimer's along. And we knew from the start, and we also figured out on the first couple nights of the race, the nighttime is not as good for this. That's when things like disorientation maybe arise a lot more. So we realized, like, at night, every single night, we need to be stopping and sleeping, 5, 6, 7 hours. And this needs to be like good, real sleep. It's not curled up under, a rainy tree in the jungle. This needs to be like laying in a village, ideally in someone's house or in a schoolroom, or, in our tent at the camp, if the timing works out. So we had a lot of just ongoing planning around that and all these little variables to make that happen. And we were able to make it happen. And I think, one of the takeaways there, maybe again, back to, other teams or teams with less experience is, especially if you're fighting the cutoffs and your goal is, I was going to say simply to finish, but simply finishing, like that's a grand goal. In this case, my advice to those teams would be like sleep, take care of yourself, and it's the same thing Nathan Fave says. It just looks different at the front of the pack, but sleep every night. And it's amazing because we saw it in this race. We'd stop and sleep for again 6, 7 hours, and all these teams would pass us overnight, and then the next day, midday, we'd be coming past them, and we weren't going that fast, but because we were fresher mentally and physically, we were just moving consistently, and we were having fun, and we're telling jokes, and we're not making these little errors navigationally or with gear or whatever. Because we're fresh, because we can actually think. When you get that sleep deprived, you can't even think, and that's why people are so wrecked. So that's anyway, a little bit of advice for what it's worth.
And navigation during the day versus at night seems not to use the pun, night and day.
Yeah, it is. It's a difference between night and day. Yeah, you can't see, and you're tired. You're gonna make more mistakes. So yes, and that's a huge piece of it as well. Again, especially for some of the beginning teams, you don't realize the teams that win, they have at least one and often 2 or 3 people who are really, really good on the maps, and they don't make many mistakes. And if they make mistakes, they're very small. That's a huge part of this sport, and something I like about it. It's a very intellectual sport in many ways.
Are you a navigator?
Yeah, yep. I mean, I was the main navigator for our team in this one, and I have navigated, teams in big races. That said, there's kind of I'm a good navigator, and there's a few people out there. Again, you look at the Kiwis or the Aussies, some of these good teams. There are great navigators, and that makes a huge difference. At the pointy end of the field.
Well, even the Kiwis made a mistake navigating.
Yeah. Everyone's going to make little mistakes.
Yeah, and they're the the elite of the elite.
Yeah. If we knew we'd be really in trouble if we had to give the guy with Alzheimer's the map, and I don't think we ever had to do that, did we, Dad?
No, but it has been done in the past. Back in the old days, nobody had real good navigators, and Marshall and Bob and I would walk around through the woods and look for people's trails in the mud and stuff like that. Figure out you get somebody who's good, and then you try to follow their tracks, and that was real good navigating skills for us.
Mark, are there other ways you've seen adventure racing change over the years?
Have I?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
How's the sport different now than it was back in the 90s?
It's better. People are, better. They're better athletes, and the people even who don't have a lot of experience, they still have, cool experience, but I'm sorry. Well, I get this Alzheimer's thing every now and then. It kind of picks up on me, and I can't remember what I was saying. But,
You understand, no worries.
The differences between now and then and what you've seen in adventure racing, especially like Eco Challenge.
Yeah, it's I don't know what the difference is. It seems like it's easier now than it used to be, and that may not be the case, but the navigation, those people who do that, they're much better than they used to be in the earliest days. And
You think technology has a big difference with it? Maybe lighter bikes, maybe like, I can't imagine the compass has changed that much, but
we didn't use them. Like I said before, I didn't care about compasses, but, you know, I don't think that the gear has changed that much, and I don't think it didn't change all that much, It's not like you go to the old days and you go, wow, look at this, and,
Mm-hmm.
but, still the sport it always was, and I think it's always going to stay that way. You
Yep.
get the best guys and the best women. They stay around for a while, and then somebody comes in and replaces them, and it's. I think it all stays the same pretty much, and I'm happy about that.
So
Yep.
maybe one of the biggest differences back in the day, like it was just like, let's find the 4 toughest guys and girls put together on a team. Whereas now it's just like, let's find the 3 toughest and a navigator. Whereas, when you had the 4 toughest, it's like, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, even back in those, the early mid '90s, I tell you what, this kind of stuff, it's part of the culture in places like New Zealand and Australia and some of these Scandinavian countries. I mean, you go to 3rd grade gym class in Norway, and like your orienteering is the activity. Like they grow up doing this stuff. And in my view, one of the things I love about this sport is it's so gritty and raw and primal that like it doesn't really change that much. There's little things here and there, and like, okay, yeah, the bikes are lighter and they have better suspension and all that. But again, if you're in this mud, like it doesn't matter what bike you have, if you're freezing your ass off in the middle of the night or in a snowstorm or, swimming through those pools in Fiji, like, the gear doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter if it's 2019 or, 1995 or 1774. It's just, it's a person making their way through nature with a team. And I think that's super cool. I'll tell you what, the thing that has changed even from when I started racing in the early 2000s is just everything that goes around it in the accessibility. I mean, 2005, I went and did a race in China, and it's like, the internet exists, but there's not that much out there, and social media hasn't taken off, and yada yada. And now, like, I think it's super cool that people get to see this. You can sit at home and you can binge watch the whole thing. Like, binge watching, that wasn't a thing, in the 90s on the USA Network, right? So all of this stuff, or do a podcast about it, or, connect with fans, or, I mean, we've received a lot of awesome support from people about Alzheimer's and this and that. And that's been great. And you can connect with those people. It's a lot different from when you had to put a letter in the mail and, mail it to where we live out in rural Colorado.
Yeah. I just want to go back, Travis. You brought up getting some good sleep as a strategy on the race.
Mm-hmm.
We saw you guys interacting with a lot of Fijians, staying in those Fijian homes. What was that like, finding lodging for the night? Because we didn't get to see that on the show. Can you just walk us through what the process was like?
Oh, man. It was, more broadly, again, and Dad touched on this, it was just the Fijian people are the most generous and enthusiastic and just happy, excitable people I've ever seen. It was so awesome. You're going through these villages and fun for me to experience, in a race where I'm not pushing so much and rushing through to actually connect with these people. I mean, we'd go through and every single kid in a village where they were biking or trekking or paddling, they'd run out and bula, 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 and they're giving us 5 and shaking our hands. And I mean, we paddled our raft through a village on the river, and all the kids swum out and climbed in the boat with us, and we're giving them 5 and they're jumping off. And, they're like, we didn't want to take them away, but they rode with us for a couple minutes, and it was just fantastic, and people giving us food. And then as far as the lodging, I mean, I tell you what, Zach, it was simple. You'd walk into the village at any hour of the night, and there were people awake, and they're hanging out. It's exciting for them as well. By the time we got there, the lead teams had come through days ago, so they know that people are coming. And we just go up to the first person, and most of them, speak English fairly well, and we just say, "Hey, is there a place we can sleep?" And that first person, he or she would literally either take you to their house, or they take you to another person's house, their brother cousin's house. They all call each other brother cousin. They take you to someone else's house, and you just head on in, and you talk a little and exchange some words, and they give you some hot tea or give you a little bit of food, and you go inside, and it's just a simple one room cement house with a bamboo mat on the floor. And depending on what time of the night is, the kids are already in there sleeping, or maybe the kids wake up and they come over and, give you five and talk a little bit. And I mean, I tell you what, it was just, some of the most amazing cultural experiences I've ever had. One night we were sleeping in there, and Danelle woke up, and one of the little kids in the house had snuggled up next to her, like your own kid would do at home. And she's like, I woke up and there he was, and then I went back to sleep. And just these precious moments. It was cool.
Yeah, you see the elite teams, and they're trucking through doing their thing, and then you see the teams behind there. And I was just so jealous of you, and I felt like some of the other teams should have been jealous of you guys. It's just like, I'm like, you guys aren't winning. Embrace what you have, and I felt like you guys embraced every single second out there, from the second you got there to I'd imagine you embraced the after party as well. But
Yep.
but we saw that as a viewer, that you guys took nothing for granted, nothing, and it was so cool to see.
Oh, thanks for saying that. I think Go ahead, Dad. Were you going to say something about that?
No, I just said thanks, guys. That's a very nice thought. And we did, and we had a spectacular time. And I don't know. I'm not, my plans are that I probably am not gonna adventure race anymore. However, I see where the race is going to be next year. I don't know if anybody's supposed to know, but
they announced Patagonia, I believe, correct?
Yeah, I've been there, and it's one of the greatest places on the planet as well. And man, I want to go to Patagonia.
They also make a great sweatshirt, so that's.
I see.
I'm here. I'm here for the insight, guys. You're welcome.
Yes. Yeah. Out of recycled materials, nonetheless, Johnny.
Yeah. So Mark, you're putting it out that potentially Patagonia is in your future.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what to say. I gotta. I kind of, think about guys like Joe Namath and those guys who they got to quit when they get old. I'm not nothing like Joe Namath, but that's what I was thinking about. Joe Namath, he's got to quit someday, and John Elway's got to quit someday. And, I guess probably old guys with Alzheimer's probably got to quit someday too. But we'll see.
Well, you bring up old guys with Alzheimer's. Which do you feel like played a bigger factor? Because I think the only time you two were ever really at odds in the race is when I think Travis was saying there's some visual spatial stuff going on here, and Mark was saying it's just age, it's my back. Which of those do you feel had a bigger impact on your race?
I've had back issues for years and years, and that's old guy stuff, and as we came close to the race, I had not had any, back problems for pretty good time, long distance. And so I thought, well, maybe I'm free. And it didn't work that way. Sometime around the middle of the race, my back spasm, and, I just down on my knees and couldn't move. And there's nothing you can do about it, drag me around like a camel or something, but there's really nothing to be done, and I'm sorry, and I take the, well, fault's not the right word, but I'm the one who pretty much wrecked our chance to have a good win, or not a win, but do real well. So that's just the way things go, though. So
we saw the one moment with the horse, and you weren't having it. You're just like, as bad as my back is, this horse throwing me off makes it immensely worse. You're like, let's just do the math here, guys. But you eventually get on, and then later you happily get on again. what made you? Did you feel that you tamed that horse enough that the worry had subsided? were you horse whispering?
There's a lot of stuff I don't remember from the race, which is pretty weird, and I think that's my Alzheimer stuff. But one of the horse events, if you would, the horse was in the water, and we got big boulders and everything, and that horse that people were telling me to get on, that thing would kill you if you get stuck in the boulders in the water in the middle of the night and stuff. And that's when I told the horse what I thought of him. Then the second time with the horse, I mean, we're coming into town, and the horse is walking along, and no danger or anything. But those horses in the water, my buddy Bob Hall, I saw him go over my head. I couldn't believe it. I hope he comes back.
Maybe a little hallucination, or
I don't
Alzheimer's going on there. Yeah, it really was a difference of terrain. That first time we were like, well, let's maybe try it. But Dad's right. I mean, we were in these rivers and slippery rocks and the muddy jungle that you saw up and down hill, and we tried it momentarily and very quickly realized that this is not a safe situation. And then later on, when we got out and we're more in the big open river valley, and we knew we just kind of had to cruise down this road to get to the camp, then it seemed safer. And that was another moment. We were at a village, and man, the whole village comes out, and everyone's just rigging up the saddle and stirrups and getting everything all set. And the women in the village are giving Dad a back massage, and just everyone's there helping. It was awesome.
That's incredible. So you guys ultimately get to this section where there's a lot of bouldering. There's going to be a ropes section, and we see a number of teams approaching this with a lot of fear. We see Team Costa Rica also addressing fear, as I think it's Veronica talking about she drowned and was resuscitated at her last adventure race, which I can't even imagine. Can you guys talk about, as experienced adventure racers? I'm trying to talk Jonny Fairplay into doing an adventure race with me.
I'm scared of heights.
Yeah. What role does fear play when you're doing adventure racing, and how do you overcome that?
Well, for me, this time is different. I've been Jumaring ropes and stuff for years and years, and that that great big spot where everybody's worried about it, and then having to, excuse me a second, where what I'm trying to say is that I've done all of that kind of Jumaring in the past, and in fact that location where everybody was worried, including me, and I was very concerned about it. And 20 years ago, that exact same spot, I got on a rope and Jumared up and came down, and in a great big storm and everything else, and no worries. But I guess that either you get old, or I don't know. maybe I was scared about the whole Alzheimer's thing, but it was difficult for me to go up there in the middle of the night, if you will, and I did, keep the guys from getting up there as well, and I'm very sorry about that because they could have gone on, and Travis and Danelle and Shane, they could have gone up without any problems whatsoever.
Well, speaking of those guys, what is it like to have your son following in your footsteps, to have Travis be an adventure racer now, and you as a dad getting to see him succeed in these areas? That's got to be a really unique feeling.
Oh yeah, it's like any other dad who's kids is an athlete doing whatever it is, and yeah, it's great. My wife and I are going to go to Patagonia, and they hang out there and see as far as I can see, so I can tell what's going on. So I'm looking forward to it. I really do.
Awesome. Cool. And we've got
I'm
Travis
back,
back.
guys. I can chime in about my biggest fear these days is that my rural small town mountain internet will get sketchy. But I'll just add in briefly regarding adventure racing. Like, man, there's going to be fear. This is an activity that's going to push you to dig to places that you probably haven't gone before. And fear is part of that. And what I've loved, one thing that's kept me coming back to this sport and to ultra running and to, doing these challenging and uncertain activities is you realize that fear can be a good direction. Oftentimes when the route leads towards fear, and this could be in your race, this can be in your business, this can be in, being an entrepreneur like you guys probably are, there's going to be a lot of fear and uncertainty there. And oftentimes, you go through it and go in that direction, and things will probably work out. I've sort of realized that I like to do more moving towards what I want to go towards instead of moving away from, what I'm afraid of or what I don't want to move towards. And, fear definitely has a piece to do. We had a lot of fear. Everyone does. It's part of the deal. It's part of life.
We had Sonia from Team Iron Cowboy on last week, and she was talking, like we see the Kiwis first get to the falls, and they get there at night, and it's just like, Bear's like, this is crazy. They're here at night, and they're gonna do it anyway. And then later in the following episodes, we see Team Iron Cowboy get there at night, and she was like, I think it was easier. And I was like, really? And she was just like, yeah. She goes, because if you can't see how scary,
you don't see the cliff. Yeah.
You've subtracted that from the equation. And I was like, okay, Zack, note to self, where if we end up doing this adventure race together, if there's cliffs, let's get there at night. So I can't see that I should be scared.
Yeah. I love the rope stuff. I absolutely love that part of races.
I think once I overcome the initial fear thing, I think I would be all in too. But
yeah, and a lot of it is.
Yeah,
well, I was just gonna say you practice, you get the skills, you have it all wired, you have faith in yourself and your teammates. Once you know how to do it, and then become second nature. Then you probably are pretty good.
So let's say you guys had done that. The next part is the pools. Are you guys happy that you didn't do the pools? Because watching the show, this seems like a crippler. I mean, it doesn't matter who, I'm seeing that. I'm just like, how cold is 52 degrees? And I'm just like, I don't feel like it's that cold, but apparently it must be the coldest thing of all time. And I'm not trying to get in my shower and find out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I tell you what, Jonny, the being cold and wet, whether you're in Fiji or, some of these other places we do races, I'm sure it'll happen in Patagonia. That's often one of the biggest challenges. And part of it is when you're depleted, you're so run down, you're low on calories, your body is kind of running on fumes anyway. It's just so much easier to get cold and hypothermic. I'm glad we didn't do it. I think we made a good call. And part of, you saw Shane was kind of giving us a rundown there of they had done that same section in the 2002 Eco Challenge. So In fact, Dad and Janelle and Shane, all three of my teammates had all been through that. And, Dad said he didn't remember it too well. Janelle at the time, Janelle finished on second place in 2002. She was on Mike Closer's team. They were Team Nike at the time. So they were, Danelle's like, the last time I did this, we were just going so fast that, I was barely conscious, and I don't remember it either. But Shane's team, in fact, was winning the 2002 race. He was with Emma. You guys remember Emma Roca, real good friend of ours. She was on Team Summit, the Catalonian team.
Yep.
So Shane raced with her in 2002. And Shane was like, in 2002, I was probably younger and fitter, and I barely made it through alive. And we kind of realized that just, in sort of the state that we're in, we don't think we're going to be able to move fast enough, to generate any body heat. And we had brought a lot of neoprene, we brought neoprene pants, neoprene shirts, neoprene hats, real warm stuff, which I think probably the teams that brought that fared better. I think some of the top teams, when you're racing for the lead, there's a fine line between carrying less, so it's lighter and you go faster, and carrying more that might, save your ass. And it looked like most of them, didn't bring the neoprene, which I was a little surprised. I mean, hindsight's 2020. I can always say, oh, if I was going fast, I still would have carried my neoprene shirt. But, who knows? Maybe I would have convinced otherwise, and subsequently, ended up in that tent, like you saw, Fran from the Spanish team. I mean, God, there's a guy who has tons of experience. I mean, that guy is a badass who has done very well in races around the world, and he's super fit, and he knows how to take care of himself. And sometimes that just happens.
Yeah, I would have had a parka in my backpack.
Yeah, well, I don't know. The parka doesn't, even a good dry down parka, if it's submerged in water, I don't know if it's doing a lot of good.
That's why I may not be an adventure race expert, guys. I gotta.
Yeah, if you guys decide to do it and you get in, give me a call and we'll talk about gear and this and that.
Boom! How cool is this?
There it is. So Travis, you're all set for Patagonia. You're getting ready to train for that.
Yeah, I'm training. I mean, this kind of, this training just it's sort of part of my life. I mean, whether or not I have a big event coming up, I love mostly running and biking and a bit of paddling here. And I happen to, live in an awesome spot in the Rocky Mountains where it's right out my door, and it's part of what I do. But Eco Challenge, absolutely. I mean, it's a great spirit. It's a great event. I loved, seeing my friends from around the world who I've seen at races over the years, and meeting new friends. I mean, awesome teams. Some of the folks you've interviewed, whether it's Sonia or the Aussie Rescue, or just lots of great folks out there who you didn't see on TV. It's a good community to connect with and be part of. And I think, a big piece of the last race for us, we made it a family thing. All of our kids and grandkids and, my wife's parents came. It was a family trip, and that was great. And we want to do that again. And I think, Dad's going to be there, one way or another, and hopefully if he's not racing, he'll be hanging out. Maybe he can come out with our crew to some of the camps or something like that, because he's totally, part of Team Endure and always will be. And you don't necessarily have to be on the course to be part of the team. Getting to these races, it is such a haul for the whole family and all the gear and the training. It's a big commitment all around, and everyone really is part of that.
Do you feel that you have a team to potentially win the next World's Toughest Race?
Jonny, good question. I think, we picked up Shane, Danelle, and I, having raced, at the elite level in the past. This year we picked up and got to experience the spirit of almost feeling a bit like a higher purpose. Let's do something cool as a team, as a family. Who knows? Maybe it's something that could make a difference to other people, and if it does, that's great. And and if not, at least we're having a cool experience. So the current plan for next year is to kind of continue that same spirit. That said, I hope Eco Challenge continues. I mean, absolutely want to get a finish. And, I've had a dream to, go for the win at Eco Challenge for a long time. And maybe that's something that happens in the future. We'll see. I think a good thing about adventure racing is, you can race at a high level, well, and look at Mike Closer. They didn't say his age, but Mike is over 60. I mean, he's an outlier in many ways. He's a phenomenal athlete. He's a great person. He has more energy and enthusiasm than the average 20 people you'll meet combined. But he's still going at a high level. So absolutely, that might be something that I'll go for sometime in the future. We'll see.
Speaking of embracing the spirit of Eco Challenge, you guys won the Spirit of Eco Challenge award. Got the picture pulled up on the video feed. What did that mean to you guys, getting honored with that award?
What do you think, Dad? Any thoughts about that?
I'm getting ready to start crying. So, it meant the world to me, and all of the Eco Challenge people have, did everything they could to make sure that I got to get it, that I got into the race, and I just can't tell you how much it meant to have, all the people who are Eco Challenge teams and all the other competitors, and I started crying then, and it means everything to me, and I can't thank everybody enough, and it's just the best. That's all I can say.
Yeah, it did. You're especially when you're at the back of the pack, just trying to make cutoffs. You're not racing for some extrinsic sort of reward like you might be at the front going for prize money or something. But yeah, it did. It meant a lot for sure. And I know that having that thing, sitting there in mom and dad's house, like it's just, hey, here's a great touch point for those grandkids to see, like, hey, wow, look at this thing, that grandpa got. And we really, like I said on the show, like, and this is true for anyone with Alzheimer's or any other, challenging diagnosis, you don't know where things are going. And I really meant, what I said to Dad, like, I'm going to make sure that these grandkids, they know who he is and they know his spirit, and that those kind of things make for a great story. So, it's, you get a lot of trophies and stuff around over the years doing this stuff, but that one to me, that definitely means more than, any first place trophy or anything that we might've gotten.
Awesome. Mark, has any autism awareness groups reached out to you since the World's Toughest Race has come on to Amazon Prime?
You mean Alzheimer's?
Yeah, like any of the awareness groups, to for like spokesman type stuff, because I mean you have an incredible story that, I mean, as I said, like I can't count how many times I cried watching World's Toughest Race, and I didn't expect to watch the World's Toughest Race and cry.
I don't think that I've been approached by anybody, and I think that's a possibility. And I'm not a Alzheimer's expert or anything. I do have my beliefs on Alzheimer's, and and I'm more than happy to talk to anybody who might want to talk to me about it. But it's just, I'm not an expert, not a doctor or anything else. I don't know that they know anything about Alzheimer's disease either.
They're working on it.
Working fast enough.
We have connected with some other families, which has been really rewarding. I know one woman reached out whose 60-year-old husband, also has early onset Alzheimer's, and he too is an athlete who's still, I think he's got an Ironman or something planned, and I think I don't know if Dad's talked to him yet, but I think we're trying to coordinate a talk, and hey, I think that's awesome. And if anything can, show people who have something tough going on that hey, living fully, it may look differently over time, but you can stay engaged, you can keep going, you can, one thing, again, back to that pre-race anxiety and should we do this? Is this a good idea? I talked to a good friend and mentor of mine, Tim Weber. He's an ultra runner and also one of my ultra running clients, but he happens to be an MD as well. And he said, Travis, when I see older folks who have an injury or a diagnosis or something tough going on, he says the people who have better outcomes are the ones who stay engaged. And that doesn't matter if that's fly fishing or hanging out with your grandkids or knitting or doing the world's toughest race, whatever that means to you. Stay engaged, and things are you're probably gonna live longer, and you're definitely gonna be happier. And that, that to me, to hear that from a doctor who's saying like, hey, go out and take this risk, that meant a lot to me.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you both from the bottom of my heart for taking that risk and for sharing your story on this race. Alzheimer's is something that has really hit my family with two of my grandparents. And I would say it's probably like the biggest fear that keeps me up at night is all of the questions and difficulties that come with like, what might the future look like? And I think that just watching you guys, hearing your story and seeing that, yeah, it changes some things, but it doesn't change everything. And how much hope can really come out of that is just, it's such a reassurance and it gives such a positive idea for the future. So thank you both for that.
Thanks for saying that, Zach. And I would say, again, I think that's something I can relate to. You have a parent or a grandparent, we know that many of these things have a genetic component, and we're learning more and more. And, there's new theories, we've worked with something called the Bredesen protocol, which is a functional medicine approach that includes a ketogenic diet and supplements. And people can. I'd say if you're dealing with Alzheimer's, you think it might be something going on, look that up. Read the book about it, see if it might be something you want to explore. And I have hope. I think you gotta have hope that things that are going on, even right now in research, whether it's drugs or again functional medicine, lifestyle, these things can help people like that. And later on, who knows what they might be able to do for people like you and I, Zach, should this become a part of our journey. And it is, you're right. There's a lot of uncertainty there. And I know that we can all get sucked into worrying about possible future hypotheticals. And that's something I've realized that with my own life and with that, I mean, we just got to be present and make the most of things now.
Yeah, you young guys don't need to worry about what's going to happen. Are you going to get Alzheimer's? I mean, there's a million things that can happen to you that are a lot more worrisome than maybe having Alzheimer's. So to all the young people like you guys, you don't have to worry about it now. Worry about it, when you get to Fiji some year and it's great.
I might be sick for a while.
Thanks, Dad.
I have one final question for both you guys. I have a half marathon. I know, watch out. This Saturday. My personal PR. Right now I'm at 145. So
good
what
for you.
advice? I'm thanks. I try. Don't let this haircut and all that fool you. It's going to be in Asheville, North Carolina. There's a lot of hills. What advice would you guys give? You guys have done it all. So what advice can you give me going into this half that maybe I haven't thought about?
Let Travis tell you that. That's what he does for a living. He told
yeah, no.
Mark's advice is ask Travis. All right.
No, step one, Jonny, I mean, look out for the mud. Don't carry a bike on your back. Don't do it in the dark. Don't mess up the navigation.
We're on flat ground. We're on paved ground.
Yeah, get some sleep the night before. No, I mean, I honestly, I liked what Nathan Fave said on the show, find your own world's toughest race. And one thing I experienced, especially, if you're racing in that, whether that means going for the win or going for your PR, it's going to be hard and you're going to suffer. I mean, I don't care if that's a marathon or a half marathon or a 5K or a 1 mile. I mean, we do these 10K snowshoe races in Colorado, and I finished those, and I think, thank God that was not 10.1K, because I might not have made it. And it's taken an hour or something, and here we are doing week-long races. But I would my advice, Jonny, for the half marathon distance would be to don't go out too hard. It sounds kind of cliche, but most people in a long race, again, whether that's a high school mile race or a 100-mile race or the eco challenge, as we saw on TV, most people go out too hard, and then they say things afterwards like, "Oh, I was on my goal pace, through mile 9," and well, you want to be on your goal pace for the whole race. So in a half marathon, you want to look at your pace, because that is an element that will help you get there. But I would also recommend, if you've been training with a heart rate monitor, maybe look at that, because that helps you gauge your exertion. And I would further recommend, ask yourself as you're running, is this effort, this exertion, what I'm feeling, they call it perceived exertion, is this perceived exertion something that I can sustain for an hour and 45 minutes? And if the answer is yes, keep doing it, and maybe even go a little faster. And if the answer is no, slow down until the answer is yes. And I would also say, and you see this in the world's toughest race, especially in long races, you can go way downhill and think, oh my God, I'm this bad now, I'm only going to be worse 2 days from now, and look at Team Bend Racing. They had a big problem early in the race, and one of the best stories there is they hung in there. They took care of it, they got better, and lo and behold, they're doing good at the end, and they're the top American team. Like that, that is life. And even in a half marathon, obviously you have less time, but you can go through a low patch. You can have a few miles there that just feel horrendous, and oh my God, I can only get worse. And lo and behold, eat, drink, stay positive, surround yourself around positive people in your race. Don't get dragged down by people whining out there. Those are not who you want to run with. And you could actually feel better, even in a relatively short race like that.
There we have it.
Kind of a long-winded answer for
no. Hey,
Just
who
kidding.
else has advice from Travis Macy going into a half marathon? I mean, I feel I'm the elite right now. So
Yeah.
thank.
Yeah, no, good luck. Yeah, I mean, seriously, those taking on that challenge, I think there's a value in that. And whether someone's going out, man, maybe your world's toughest race is the 5K cancer walk or something like that. Go out and do it. That's awesome. For that could be just as hard in many ways, as going out and pushing yourself through something like the Fijian jungle.
And there we have it.
Awesome. Well, Mark, Travis, thank you so much for joining us. This has been even better than I hoped, and I had really high expectations. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks you guys. Great talking. Thanks for sharing your energy. Thanks for your good questions and stuff. It's been great to hang out with you.